Before we get the video started, I would like to credit and thank my father, Evan Productions, for going out with me and getting some photos for today's video. Couldn't have done it without you and your glorious camera. So yeah, with that said, let's move on to the video. And if I haven't uploaded anything yet to be called stupid, this is going to be the video that changes that. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Another video means another dopamine high, because I had to buy something to feel something. And today we're not doing a review, we're doing something a little bit different. Actually, we're doing an overview video. If you couldn't tell by the thumbnail or title of the video, we're doing an overview of all of Delta Squad now that Hasbro has released them all for the Black Series. And I will make it noted, if you haven't been keeping up with the videos, or if this is your first exposure to the channel, well, first of all, hello, but I do have reviews for each individual member of Delta Squad already up on the channel. I go over every little thing that is included, and then of course I give, my general thoughts and opinions, discussion, stuff like that. So if you do want to check out any of those, there will be links in the description of the video to each member. And if you don't have these figures already and you do want to pick them up, they all are part of the Gaming Greats wave, which means they are all GameStop exclusives. But unfortunately, Boss is no longer available. It doesn't even say he's out of stock. It literally just says that this figure is unavailable. So rip those who don't have Boss yet and have to go to the aftermarket prices of eBay. But Sev and Fixer are $27.99 and Scorch is $28.99, just $1 more. So if you do want to pick up Sev, Fix, and Scorch, you can go in the description of this video, and I will have links to their GameStop links. Before we jump further into the overview, just to give you all some insight on why I'm making this video and kind of see where I'm coming from, this isn't a desperate attempt at pushing out content because I have nothing to review currently, even though I don't actually have anything to review currently. This isn't a desperate attempt to push out content. This is a video I actually really want to make, and I've been thinking about making ever since even before all of Delta Squad was released. This is something that I've considered doing, and here we are, me making this video. But I have a huge passion for talking about the things I love, the franchises I love, the universes, lore, stuff like that. I put lore segments in all my videos pretty much, and I encourage all of y'all during, if not at the end of my videos, to go down to the comment section below, get a conversation started, because I like talking about this stuff genuinely. And Republic Commando is my favorite Star Wars video game of all time. I have a huge nostalgia bias for it. It is one of the first shooters I have ever played. I love this game to bits and pieces. It's a game I've played 1,000 times over, and I will play it another 1,000 times over and still not get bored of it. It is a game that I have basically played in and out. I've done everything, and I've never gotten bored of it. It's a game I can always go back to and just have a good time. It scratches an itch unlike any other Star Wars video game could scratch. Not saying that the other Star Wars video games are bad. There's a bunch of Star Wars video games that I do love, but Republic Commando is my number one. It is my golden child. It is the thing that I can never say no to. And I just love this game, the bits and pieces. If you couldn't tell already, I can go on for hours why I love this game, but that's not what we're here for. At least not in this video. Who knows later down the road. But I just love Republic Commando so much, and this gives me an opportunity to semi-talk about it while also talking about figures, which is something I love talking about. So yeah, my passion for talking about franchises, universes, and lore that I find very interesting, while also it being of my favorite Star Wars video game, just kind of goes hand in hand on why I'm making this video. And also there's just a lot of things amongst the Black Series community that have made me think, and there's been things said about the release of Delta Squad that makes me want to put out my 2 cents, give my opinions and whatnot. So this is me basically stating my final verdict on all of the Delta Squad releases, and basically, involving myself in that conversation if I haven't already with the 4 videos I've already made. So this overview is going to be formatted very similar to how I format my reviews. If you haven't caught on, there is a formula, there is an order to my reviews in which the things I cover. Obviously we have the intro, which we've already gone through, the unboxing, which we're not going to really discuss the packaging for these figures, so we don't have to worry about that. And then we have the articulation, features and accessories, the visual presentation, size comparisons, thoughts, and discussion. And then, of course, we have the outro. These are all things that I'm going to cover in this video as well, but in a more generalized term rather than, picking up on one figure individually or, picking anyone out. It's because, you know, I've already reviewed all 4 figures and I already have reviews of them up on the channel. So, you know, I'm going over the same topics that I would in the review, but more so covering all 4 figures at once rather than, you know, reviewing them, because like I said, I've already done that. So hopefully this helps y'all have a better understanding of how this video is going to work, and it makes it easier to watch now that you know where I'm coming from. So with all that said, let's get into the overview. So one important piece of information when regarding Delta Squad, and not even just with their articulation, but this piece of information does apply to multiple topics of conversation when regarding the release of these figures, and it's the fact that Delta Squad uses the same mold as Hunter, because Hunter did release before Delta Squad, and Hunter does wear Commando armor, so his release was a little bit of foreshadowing for Black Series Commando figures. But because Hasbro likes reusing assets whenever they can, they just used Hunter's body for all of the releases for Delta Squad. And like I said, this doesn't just apply to articulation, but this information can be applied to multiple topics. It plays into multiple things that people have talked about when regarding the Delta Squad release. So I figure I get that out of the way. But when it comes to the articulation for these figures, I will say that the Hunter mold and, you know, the Delta Squad figures have some of the best articulation I have seen in the Black Series. This articulation segment is going to be short because I have nothing bad to say about the articulation, or nothing really to nitpick or point out, except, you know, it's some of the best articulation I've seen in the Black Series, because I'm not saying Black Series figures do have bad articulation. They have alright articulation. They're able to do the basic, you know, movements, and like you can have them in like certain stances and whatnot, but like sometimes at least like the older figures, it was hard to have them kneel down and stay up properly, or you couldn't really have them shoulder their weapon or do certain, you know, stances that require like let's say a dynamic stand or something. But with these figures, and I will say that as years go by, Hasbro has been getting better with the Black Series articulation. Like I've been seeing improvements upon, you know, throughout all types of figures that they've been releasing, but these figures, the Delta Squad figures and Hunter, they're able to do all these, like, you know, tactical looking poses. You can have them shoulder their weapons and actually have it look like they're aiming down sights. You can have them kneel down and just do all these poses that you normally wouldn't be able to do with some of the current and mostly some of the older Black Series figures. So I have to give these figures credit for having some of the best articulation that we've seen in the Black Series, at least in my opinion. And that's pretty much all I have to say about the articulation, is that this is some of the best we've seen in the Black Series. Now, before proceeding on with this segment, I must make it very clear that at the end of, well, towards the end of every video, during the thoughts and discussion segment, I usually do the pros and then the cons, and then I recently added in to be desired, which are just things that I think they could have, you know, added, or I think they should have added, or adjusted, tweaked, stuff like that. And I didn't really do that in the Scorch video because I knew this video was going to be coming out, because this entire video is one kind of to be desired things I think they should have or could have tweaked, added, changed. And I know in articulation I had no complaints, nothing like that to note about, but in this segment is where we start getting into that territory, so just a heads up for that. So when discussing the features and accessories, in the realm of features, I don't really have anything to say. The only features that are included with these figures is the fact that their backpack is removable, and after that there's not really any other features included with these figures, so there's nothing really to say on that. When it comes to the accessories though, that is where I have a handful to say. Starting off with the visual presentation of their blasters, it wasn't up until Scorch where they actually started painting the weapons, like, because with the DC-17Ms that came with Boss and Fixer, and then the Sniper variant for Sev, they just painted it one color and kept it that way. But with Scorch's grenade launcher, there's actually some color variation there, which is nice to see. I just don't know why they started with the last release, which I think is a little bit weird. Glad they did it nonetheless, but I kind of wish, you know, if they were going to do that with Scorch, they did it with the rest of Delta Squad. Now, with that said, some changes or adjustments I would make to the visual presentation of the blasters, starting off with the DC 17Ms that we see with Boss and Fixer. For the magazine, I'd put just a little blue line on it, just, to indicate the ammo that we see in game. And then as for the ammo counter that's actually on the blaster, I would just do a tiny little blue rectangle. I wouldn't actually go as far as to put the digits, because I know Hasbro doesn't really do details that small. I know NECA does, but Hasbro isn't really known for that, so I would just leave it a little tiny blue rectangle just to spice things up and add some color variation to those blasters. And then looking at Sev's sniper, his hollow scope is actually painted black, which doesn't make sense because in game the scope isn't a physical thing, it's a holographic lens. You can't actually touch it. If you ran your hand through it, your hand would pass right through it. So I would just paint the hollow scope on the sniper rifle blue just to make it a little more game accurate, and yet again add a little more flair to that. And then one thing I would do across all DC 17Ms that we got with the Delta Squad release is I would actually kind of like wash it up with some metallic silver, some gunmetal gray, the equivalent of black washing a really clean figure to make it look dirty, but instead of using black, I'd use, a kind of silvery color to kind of just add some more character to these blasters and make them look a little more worn and used. And I think then with everything that I've already said on top of that, I think these blasters would look phenomenal for what we get with the Black series. So that's just my 2 cents there. So I just want to make it very clear for like this part and for the rest of the video, this isn't me saying Hasbro bad or me saying Hasbro did a terrible job with the blasters or whatever else I address later on in the video. This is me just saying if Hasbro wanted to improve upon the blasters and they wanted to hear out the fans, this is the information or the advice that I would personally give them on how going about making these blasters look better. So yeah, this is just my opinion on how I would personally improve the blasters and whatever else I mention on in the video. And even after visual presentation, I do feel like there was a missed opportunity for Hasbro when addressing how they gave us the accessories, because in the game you can use the sniper rifle, you can use the grenade launcher, Fixer can use the sniper rifle and the grenade launcher, Sev can use the grenade launcher, and Scorch can use the sniper rifle. So I feel like they could have given all commandos upon release all 3 DC 17M variants if they wanted to do that. And if Hasbro didn't want to go about it that way, I feel like they could have at least given Scorch and Sev the default DC 17Ms, because they only use the variants when you assign them to. Most of the game, including Fixer obviously, the commandos just use the DC 17M for the most part. So I feel like they could have just thrown that in as well. And then one accessory that's not included at all that I really think Hasbro could have added, and it would have been a really, really nice touch, is the DC-15S sidearm blaster. That is the pistol you use when you are out of ammo. And I feel like it just would have been cool if they included that. And the reason why I'm talking about, them including more accessories with the figures, even though they technically gave us the right accessories for these figures, is because these figures are almost $30, which, for $30, you're not really getting a lot. And the reason why I say that is because, NECA figures are like just about $10 more than these figures, and the comparison of accessories is like a landslide. NECA figures for just almost $10 more come with a shit ton of more accessories, features, and just overall better quality. NECA does a really good job at making high quality figures, but just for a small price difference, the amount of accessories is insane. And I just feel like, for almost reaching NECA prices, I feel like Hasbro could, throw in a few more accessories and add a little more value to these figures. Hopefully you understand where I'm trying to come at, and hopefully you can agree with me. If you don't, it is what it is. That's fine. But I just feel like if they wanted to add more value to these almost $30 figures, they could just throw in accessories, and this is how I think they could have gone about it. Now, earlier in the video, I mentioned how the Hunter mold was used for these figures is an important piece of information because it brings up a lot of points of conversation, and that shines the most in visual presentation of these figures. This is where the most controversy, the most comments are had about these figures using the Hunter mold. And even though, yes, Hunter's articulation is really good, which allowed Delta Squad articulation to be really good, the one complaint people were having about the release of Delta Squad was because they used the same body mold as Hunter, they were slimmed down significantly, because if we do look at their Republic Commando appearances, Delta Squad has a lot of thicker, bulkier armor, and that seemed to set the standard for what Republic Commando armor was like, and it was like that for a very long time. Now, I can understand why people are upset about, them not having their more bulkier, thicker appearance, because, a lot of people, like myself, grew up on Republic Commando. A lot of people love the Republic Commando game, and they would like their Delta Squad figures to look as accurate to their first on-screen appearance. And you know what? I don't blame them for that. I get it. But we have to take a look at Delta Squad's appearance in Clone Wars, Gregor's appearance, all the Commando appearances in the Bad Batch, Scorch's appearance as well, and then, of course, Hunter's appearance as well. All of them are the same size. All those Commandos are the same size. Hunter doesn't have some customized slimmed down Commando armor. He is the same size as all the other Commandos. The whole thing with the Commandos being slimmed down is a stylized choice made by the animators of Clone Wars and the Bad Batch, and I think that's what just Black Series went with, was what Clone Wars and Bad Batch was doing, because that's right now where we're getting all of our Commando media. All of the things that we're seeing with the Commandos is coming from that style of, Star Wars. So I think that's what they were just going with. But yes, you could argue that EA's Battlefront 2, a game that really tries to make every trooper, every character, every appearance look as live action and as movie accurate as possible, has the Commando in it, and that Commando has the more bulkier armor that we saw in the Republic Commando video game. So I guess there's that weird anomaly, but we have to look at it like this. Every time we've seen a Commando, it's been in a video game or in some sort of animated media, things that have, their own, artistic, direction, their own, stylistic interpretation of the Star Wars universe. So nothing is completely, like, at least design-wise, completely lore accurate, because the artists are going to exaggerate or stylize some of the things that we see in that animated media or game. So until we get a live action Commando, whether it's in a show or a movie, we have no concrete answer whether the thick or thin route is canon. So as of right now, there is no right or wrong answer. It's completely subjective whether you like the appearance of these Black Series figures, and me personally, I genuinely don't mind how they look and how they cater towards the Clone Wars or Bad Batch art style. Yeah, I do like the bulky, thick appearance of Republic Commandos, seeing that I did grow up on the Republic Commando video game, but I also don't mind this appearance as well. I'm just happy that we did get Republic Commando figures in the first place. So that is all I have to say about this. I've brought up my points on why, there is no right or wrong answer, and hopefully y'all can see where I'm coming from. I apologize for this rant. Let's move on with the visual presentation. So even though I don't mind that decision and it's subjective at the end of the day, one thing I actually don't like about Hasbro using Hunter's mold for the Delta Squad release is their forearms. On all of their forearms, there's a peg hole. The reason for that is because on Hunter, on his forearm, he has a sheath for his knife. So, he has a piece of equipment that goes on his forearm. The rest of Delta Squad doesn't. None of them have any kind of equipment that goes on their forearm, and Hasbro didn't think to fill in that peg hole or just mirror the other forearm or whatever. They just decided to leave the peg hole there, and to me personally, it's an eyesore and it's really distracting. And, if you have anything to, fill it in, plug it in, whatever, power to you. I envy you, and if it's something you don't mind, even more power to you, that you can just look past that. To me though, like I said, I think it's an eyesore and it's really distracting, especially because there's no other accessories except for Hunter's sheath that goes into that peg hole. There's no accessory pack or substitute thing for the Commandos, so it's just kind of there until they either re-release the Commando figures and plug in that hole, or until they give us an accessory suitable for the Commandos to go on their forearm, which I don't think they ever will do either. But yeah, that's just one thing I don't like about Hasbro using the Hunter mold for the Delta Squad releases. And the last thing that I can really talk about when it comes to the visual presentation of these figures, and that is the sculpt and paint job. I think Hasbro did a really good job at getting down all their markings and colors. I like how their markings look worn, look used, like the paint is chipping on some of their markings, which I really like to see. And then as for the sculpt, I think they did a really good job at getting down all the little curves, lines, bits and pieces, all the things that we would see in Commando armor. So I'm very happy with how Hasbro went about that. If I were to be nitpicky and nitpick about something, I feel like Hasbro could have made their armor a little more dirtier. Don't get me wrong, there's already scruffs, wear and tear, and dirt on these figures. But if Hasbro really wanted to cater towards their Republic Commando appearances a little bit more, a game that's very dirty, it's very gritty, very dark, they could have thrown a little bit more dirt, a little more grit, made the curves, the lines in their armor pop out a little bit, kind of like how you can pan a line on model kits, something like that. But that's not really, something that would make or break these figures. It's just if I were to nitpick at all, that's something I would nitpick about. But at the end of the day, very happy with how Hasbro went about the paint and sculpt for these figures, except for the peg and their forearm. That is my only complaint. And with all that said, I think I'm done talking about the visual presentation of these figures. So usually in a review right after visual presentation, I would go on the size comparisons, but there's nothing really about the scaling of these figures I have to talk about. They're Black Series figures, they're 6 inches tall, it is what it is. No comments, no concerns. That means it brings us to thoughts and discussion. And like I said in the beginning of the video, this is what this entire video is. It's just one long drawn out thoughts and discussion segment for the overall release of Delta Squad. So this is going to work like any other thoughts and discussion segment though, where I go over pros, cons, likes, dislikes, weaknesses, strengths, stuff like that. Give my overall general opinions, give y'all even more stuff to bounce off of, and go down into the comment section below and get a conversation started if anything in this video hasn't done that already. But going over the sour stuff first, just to get it out of the way. And really, there's only two things I've disliked over the span of the release of Delta Squad, starting off with their prices, or at least the amount of things we get for their prices. Like I mentioned earlier, these figures are almost $30. They are actually more than $30 if you buy them online. This is going into NECA price ranges, and I feel like Hasbro needs to do something to improve the quality or the accessory count of these figures if we're going to be paying those kind of prices. So like I mentioned earlier, things I think they could do are throw in, some default DC-17Ms for Sev and Scorch, or throw in the DC-15S sidearm blaster with every commando, or they can give us all 3 DC-17M variants with each release of Delta Squad, just to add some more value to these figures. And then the other thing I dislike about the release of Delta Squad is that their forearm has the peg hole for Hunter's sheath, when in reality Delta Squad and none of the members have any kind of equipment that go on their forearms, so that peg hole is just kind of an eyesore and very distracting. At least to me it personally is, and I bet some of you do agree, but I also bet some of you can just kind of look past it, and you know what, power to you. But yeah, the only two things I dislike about the release of Delta Squad is their increase in price and, not increase of compensation, and the peg holes in all of their forearms. And then moving on to the positive side of things, the things I like about the release of Delta Squad, starting off with the articulation. This is some of the best articulation we've seen in the Black Series. Not saying that the articulation for the rest of the Black Series figures are bad, and I'm not saying that they're not improving over time, but as of right now, this is the best we've seen, and hopefully one day all Black Series figures can be on this level of articulation. And then the visual presentation of these figures. Yeah, some people might not like, how slim the figures might be because they're not catering towards the Republic Commando or EA Battlefront 2 look, but I will say the sculpt and paint job for these figures are really good. You know, they got their markings down, their paint jobs, their armor does look worn, it does look used, the sculpting, all the little pieces of equipment are there, all the curves and lines that you would normally see, everything is there. The only issue is the peg hole. That's my only nitpick about the sculpting, but otherwise everything else is there. The paint job, like I said, phenomenal. The whole sculpt on whether the armor should be thick or thin is more of a subjective thing. Personally, I don't mind it, like I said, but I'm very happy with that. And I understand throughout this entire video regarding the accessories, I've been talking about them more in a negative light, but I will give Hasbro the benefit of the doubt. I'm very happy that they did give Sev the sniper rifle and Scorch the grenade launcher. They could have easily just chose the lazy route and just stuck with the default DC-17M because they already have the sculpt and mold for it, but they did go that extra mile and make a brand new sculpt for the sniper and grenade launcher variants. So I'm very happy that they did that. And then one last thing I could think of, and I wouldn't really consider as a strength or a pro, but more so just a flat out positive, just to, you know, give Hasbro credit, and that's Scorch's backpack and how they tackled that, because they could have easily taken the easy way out and they could have gone with the design that we see in the Bad Batch, which is a normal commando backpack with just his colors, but you know, they actually went with the backpack that we see in the Republic Commando video game and in that one episode of Clone Wars. So very happy that they actually, you know, went out of their way to get his backpack done right. And yeah, no, so very happy to see that. And then this would be the part where I would go over things considered to be desired, but that's what this entire video is for. So yeah, those are the strengths and positives and, you know, the weaknesses and the negatives of the release of Delta Squad, at least in my opinion. So that is it pretty much. I have nothing else to add or say about these figures. I've said everything I've had to say. I have the 4 reviews. There's this video. So yeah, to make it very clear though, anything and everything I have said in this video, I'm not bashing on Hasbro. I'm not saying Hasbro is the devil for things they did or didn't do with these figures. These are just simply little critiques, things I would adjust or change about the figures. Like, let's say if Hasbro were to come out and be like, we're going to re-release all of the Delta Squad figures, what would you like us to improve or change about them? I would simply tell them what I said in this video. These are my opinions and my opinions alone. If you agree with me, cool. If you disagree, cool. We all have our own opinions at the end of the day. If you want to bounce off anything I did say in this video, you're more than welcome to get a conversation started. I like talking about this stuff clearly, and I'll most likely reply to your comments. So don't be afraid to comment at all. And if you have these figures already, like I said, go down in the comment section below. Tell me how you feel about them. Do you like them, dislike them, all that jazz. And with that, I think we can move on to the outro. So if you did enjoy this video, a like and a subscription would be awesome. Obviously, because this was a very conversation heavy video, you're more than welcome to comment if you don't want to and you just simply want to hear my opinion. Cool. Like I said though earlier, you're more than welcome to comment, get the ball rolling on some conversation. I'll most likely reply to your comments because I like talking about this stuff, obviously. And don't worry about the bell, we both know that shit is broken. And if you want to see more content like this up on the channel, like I said, I have reviewed each member of Delta Squad, so you can go check those out if you haven't already. But I also review other Black Series stuff as well. I also review NECA and Halo stuff as well, so if you want to go check out any of that interests you, more welcome to go look at that as well. And with all that said, I hope you have a great day and please stay hydrated. It's important.